All right, all right. We're going live. We're going live. All right, all right. Greetings. Welcome to Dorsey's Resource. The topic of this video is going to be who teaches status correction, aka sovereignty, free information. But first, as usual, before we get started, for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. Please understand everyone's individual circumstance or situation may be different. It's up to every individual competent person to please do his or her own homework and research regarding the information being discussed. This information is not to be construed as legal advice. In the event you feel you need to seek a competent professional, it is encouraged you do so at one's own leisure. Dorsey's Resource Channel is not liable or responsible for anyone's misuse of the information being presented. These are simply my thoughts and opinions on the topic. Now, let's get into this. All rights are reserved. Topic, once again, is going to be I covered this topic previously. Who teaches status correction, aka sovereignty? And I don't plan to be before you all that long. I want to go over a list of names I've went over before, just to get equip, empower you guys with a lot of questions I've gotten in the past. I may be stepping away for a while from this type of information altogether since I'm transitioning. I'm still trying to get to a higher level myself with studying this type of information. I never really got to the level, the point that I wanted to, but I am aware, I was informed a long time ago, a stampede of people are trying to find out this information. There were some private classes that were going on last year in the year of 2020. We're now in 2021. Those private classes, a lot of people may be aware, and this is how I met some people, by the way. I was invited by one of my contacts south of where I'm at, in Michigan. Someone down south invited me to these private classes that were going on at the time, and it dealt with the trademark DBA process. As I said before, those who are studying, or whether you call it sovereignty, redemption education, whatever name you give it, that's up to you. I'm not going to get into the semantics. Different people have different names, different things that they refer to this information as, but that's generally one of the terms that I saw in the past. Is people say, oh, how can I correct my status? Is diplomatic immunity, is it real? How do I get on the do not detain list? I want to say, before you can accomplish a lot of those things, it's important to get the basics down first, by the way, to find out this information is unconventional. It's like a form of unconventional college education on a level of a collegiate level or university. So you got to understand there's different levels to this information. Is real. I've talked about my experiences in the past. So some of what you may hear is going to be like, you may have heard me mention certain things before. Some of you all are already advanced. Some of you all I know have done your research already. And I know people that know the work that I put out have sent me names of people that I'm going to go over from other YouTube channels that I was fully aware of that taught for a while. I just kept my mouth shut. I didn't really say who they were. But since I'm going to be in a process of basically paperwork myself, and I don't have, there's things I don't really have the time maybe to go into the details about dealing with status correction, but hopefully these channels, this information will give you, excuse me, to help locate people out there who teach this type of information. By the way, there is a lot, but however, there are certain ones. I have a list that people have asked me, well, Dorsey, where can I find free information? By the way, and I'm going to answer that question, by the way. And without further ado, getting into this, like I said, I have a list. These are YouTube channels. I may go over websites as well. You can look up these names independently. I encourage everyone, as I mentioned in my disclaimer, to do their own homework, to do their own research. And I talk about the legitimate side, this sovereign man on the land, patriot type stuff. I mean, there's things that derive from that education and history, but I'm talking about people that had successes, processes that have worked. I saw firsthand myself a few things. But as I was going over earlier, if you want to achieve diplomatic immunity, uh, proper status correction, properly correcting your status, it is real, by the way. But however, it's hiding in plain sight. The ruling class, those at the top, they're not going to come out and share this type of event, because remember, they were taught by their parents. Many of them were sent to private schools by invitation only. There's people at that come from real high up based on their bloodlines or lineage, that are initiated, that are sent to private seminars by invitation only, meaning you have to be invited. By the way, in some instances, it's people who are rich that don't understand the difference. There's a difference between being wealthy and being rich, and there's a public side versus a private side of being rich, or I like to say wealthy. Wealthy is in another category. Rich, have a lot of money, but still be public, and that's how certain people get caught up, and they're not litigation proof, they're not judgment proof. By the way, you see, I'm giving some hints there. If you, those of you all who are aware, so names, these are channels, YouTube channels. They also, some of these people also have websites for you to gather free information to decide at your own discretion which route you want to go. But keep in mind, as I was going over diplomatic immunity, sovereignty, it is real. But keep in mind, you're going to have to apply yourself. There are study courses out there. There's different webinars. There are books. But I know to find real information, what I've done to give you guys some of my secrets, my tools, is I studied a multitude of processes and a multitude of channels, different people, by the way. So one channel is called His Advocates. By the way, it's a YouTube channel. It's Kelby Smith. Channel's called His Advocates. Sometimes he talks about other things, maybe His Advocates. By the way, Kelby Smith. By the way, he was working with Fred and Nina Gutierrez some years ago. By the way, they were doing private seminars across the country, across the U.S., to help people learning this type of information that could not find proper assistance within the judicial legal system. By the way, because many of them have been pledged. As many of you already know, they've been pledged to the bar. They work both sides, no matter what side you're on. They can determine things how they see fit. If they see you contracting a certain way, they see that you're still public. They see that you're still involved in certain contracts on the public side. They're going to deal with you. And in the cases, the court cases, and they also make money. The court systems are connected to the CRIS accounts. CRIS is an acronym for Court Registry Investment System. For county, that's an acronym for the CAFR funds, Comprehensive Annual Financial Reports, where they tap into your QSIP. That's QSIP is a form of your Social Security number. The front side is the SESTQ Trust. The back side represents the Foreign CITES Trust under the International Monetary Fund that goes worldwide, that's traded, that's connected to the DTC. You can look up on GMEI Utility, going all the way to Switzerland and Luxembourg, where they have the supercomputer and information on people. Then you have the European form of the DTC, that's Euroclear, by the way, that in other countries where they've done the same similar process, where they use the birth certificate and they create chartered corporations out of people, but legal fictions as a conduit for you to do business when you enter into contracts with the government, by the way, which you're tricked into thinking that you're the surety, you're acting as the surety, but there's a dual-sided system that it can be confusing. But if you don't know what side you're operating on, they'll generally have you on the debtor side, not the creditor side. So you have to ask the question, are you the borrower or are you the lender? Are you the debtor or are you the creditor? I'm speaking cryptically, but you'll learn some of these things from studying this type of information. I'm going to acknowledge, I see someone in the chat, Noble T.U. Savage says, Nation of Hawaii citizenship application. Says, first question to ask is, why do you want this info? By the way, okay, he says, wealth is the generation of steady income you don't have to labor for. Riches is access to large amounts of liquidity or credit. Yes, yes, you are correct. Those are some good questions. And by the way, I mentioned this in the past. I believe, just in my humble opinion, there's people that are way more advanced than myself. I'm a humble person. I don't mind. I'm still learning. Like I said, I'm at a certain level, and this is why I wanted to provide you guys with information where to find people. You know, as I'm not doing videos as much as I used to, as I'm working on other things with my busy schedule, you'll have other references. Another channel, I went over his advocates. Another channel is Jonah Bey. He has a YouTube channel. He also has a website, by the way, jonahbey.com. I do want to say there is a different process, by the way, dealing with the Moors. If you are claiming nationality, that is true. There's legitimacy behind that, but there is always, remember, there's a correct way, a correct method to go about doing something to make sure that it works. You don't necessarily have to when you understand how they created these contracts. By the way, however, a lot of African Americans, melanated people, for example, that I've spoken with also want to claim their nationality. Some may change their last name. And I want to reiterate once again, there are different processes. Contrary to popular belief, I can tell you for sure there's different processes. This is why I'm going over a multitude of information. Some of the different names that I go over, their processes are different. Their procedures are different. They have webinars. You're going to have to acclimate yourself with the study courses. If you decide which route, which path you go towards, which direction. Remember, you can take different routes can get you to the same destination, whether you take the freeway or you travel on some of the main roads or the highway. They can still get you to the same certain destinations, by the way, but it's up to one. I can lead you to the well, but it's up to you to determine if you're thirsty, if you want to drink, or if you feel someone's process is more suitable for you. That's up to you to make that decision, by the way. I've gone into more private details for those who set up private consultation with me. If that's one of the questions you have, I can give you a better idea of which route, maybe the pathway, the direction that you may want to go. But you can still make that determination, and I'm going to go over in this video. So once again, I'm going to run down the list. I went over his advocates, Kelby Smith. I went over Jonah Bey. You have Akeem El, by the way. That's spelled A as in Apple, K as in Kite, E as in Edward, I as in Icarus, M as in Matt, -EL. He has a website as well. Akeem El and Jonah Bey, I would say, in my humble opinion, they're very advanced, by the way. They used to work together. I have some of their webinars where they actually work with one another, but I'm not sure what the exact reason. They had a falling out. But that's still fine. I looked at both of their processes. They still work from at the level that I'm at, being advanced. I can distinguish between which process is how Jonah teaches his method versus how Akeem goes his route. I think they complement each other, and you can combine different processes together, different procedures. But however, it is important. I can say that from my experience that you're going to have to acclimate yourself. You're going to have to get study courses such as webinars, so you have a better idea, better understanding if you're looking at combining processes, or else you're going to confuse yourself. I've even gotten confused, of course, but however, as I've gotten down the road, being in this since 2004, I definitely a correct way, because unofficially there wasn't really a correct way, or A through Z. It's like, yes, there is, but then again, it's not. It's kind of like how the universe is based off of yin and yang. Then again, it is, but then again, at the same time, it isn't. But you're going to have to distinguish that yourself from going over the information. This is another reason why I'm going over different free information to look up, so you can make your own assessment, your own judgment, by the way. And these people, the reason I say free information, they have a lot of videos, by the way, on their YouTube channels. This information that I'm going over, and others that I'm going to go over on this list that I have right here, that if you have a video downloader, it would behoove you to download the information, archive it, get a backup thumb drive, hard drive, whatever storage unit you use, by the way, and you would have a reference, a form of a school. By the way, you can take notes. I know a guy, what he does, and I started working on this. I kind of got away from it, but it's a good strategy. What he does that helps in his research, and he's been very successful with this. He will buy like those binders from Office Depot, and he will take a lot of printouts and then put them inside the sheet protectors. And remember, when you raise the font, like say if you have a personal printer, you can raise the font so the print is easier for you to read. Say if you're someone that you don't have perfect vision, or you have trouble reading small wording. One thing I noticed, like for example, when I was back in college, one of my college professors I used to actually work for privately, he told me that when I raised the font, not too large, some people would do it intentionally to take up whole paragraphs, but when I would write papers for my business class, I took international business. He said he actually admired and liked the fact that I raised the font, because it was easier for him to read it. I noticed he had reading glasses, by the way. So you can print up these documents. You can buy those binders from Office Depot, your office supply, whatever office supply store that may be in your area. And the sheet protectors, I noticed when it's clear, by the way, and you have a room that has good lighting, you can you can start categorizing the information. By the way, it helps you categorize it versus going online. You know, we're inundated, we're bombarded with a lot of information on our laptops, desktops, let's say tablets. And I know it can be difficult for some if you don't have good organizational skills to it's important to catalog this information when you study this type of info. By the way, I'm going to jump to the chat again. Says Philip Tilton says others have gone to jail for this information. It's smart to understand sovereignty, but be careful standing on your square. Yes, that is correct, by the way. But I will say I went over some of the history in some of my previous videos. Nowadays, because there's a stampede of a lot of people who are learning this information. If you go over to some of the other channels that it's names that I haven't mentioned yet, you can tell just by seeing the number of views and the number of likes that these channels are growing. One guy was like a smaller channel than mine, or around the same amount of subscribers, and he's blown tremendously. And I see, if you just look at the likes, so there's a ton of people. I was invited to a private webinar last year that I just mentioned earlier, dealing with the trademark DBA process. The gentleman he went over, he was pretty advanced, privately, by the way, and I would say exclusively, he charges a fee from what I was informed by some of the contacts that I had when he decided to break things off. But he gave a lot of free information out, and gave those who took the classes the ability to do their own research. And I shared the information on the house just pro bono with a few friends of mine privately, people within my vicinity that live in the same city, the area that I know personally, and they were very elated, and I know it helped empower them, and they got to a much greater level. They were already advanced themselves, but it helped them out tremendously, because it's easier to work with people, as I suggested. If you know someone that lives in the same area or state that you're in, it's important to form study groups. By the way, if you want to get more advanced, by the way, some of the strategies is, if you have a private group, I know that some of the webinars information can be pretty expensive sometimes. We're trying to learn this information, trying to purchase the material. What you can do with a team or group of people, if you are dedicated, I know of people, different groups that have done this in the past, is put your money together. Let's say if you're a family, that you may have families out there, or couples, wives or husbands, that want to learn this information. You can put your money together, and you can go in on purchasing a webinar or material. That's what some of the groups that I used to study with many years ago did. And that's how throughout the years, some years ago, information privately, if there was a particular process or study course, because remember, there's different study courses. Like you have the right to travel, you had a separate study course on credit, you had a study course on taxes, a separate study course on Social Security, a separate study course on nationality. By the way, a separate study course on how to discharge debt, how to pay off your bills. Those are different study courses, by the way. Hold on a second. I think I have something. I'll just be in the back if you need me. All right. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. I had unexpectedly had a situation that happened just to go into my personal business before I get back into the topic of the video. By the way, I was going over different names that you can look up, you can research for free online. And keep in mind, some of these names have websites, they have YouTube channels. So far, I went over his advocates, Kelby Smith, Jonah Bey. By the way, I went over Akeem El, which I think Jonah Bey and Akeem El both complement each other. Have a lot of respect for the research that they've done, the work that they both have put in. I have purchased webinars from both of them in the past, by the way. They have new updated material throughout the years, specific processes such as I went over like the passport or IRS or credit repair. There's different study courses, because I know there's people that say they want to know how to do everything. And keep in mind, it takes time to research this. Unless you're a really intelligent person, you have a high IQ or photographic memory, it's going to take some time to put in the work to learn this information. You also have, by the way, Yusuf El at High Frequency Radio. Many of you are already familiar with, very advanced, very versed with the Yusuf El. You can also look up his blog talk or his website. I'm not sure the name offhand, by the way. Another YouTube channel you can look up for free. It's called Radiant Clone, by the way. It's called Radiant Clone. He puts out a lot of free information on this type of info. By the way, is Radiant Clone. He uploads for a while a lot of Patrick Divine videos, and some say yes, that is old, but before I heard allegedly Patrick Divine passed away. I'm not sure if that's true. I think that may be the case. His information got more advanced, by the way, but he helped pioneer, I would say, a lot of the information similar to Winston Shrout, dealing with the 1099 process, the OID, dealing with status correction. He did a lot of good research dealing with the estate, how to pull money down from the SSN account, because that's in a trust. They're only paying you in portions when people collect SSI, because that's coming off your NLingus. NLingus is the legal term for straw man. That's the legalese. You can look up, there's an actual term called legalese. They don't use straw man in court. They refer to as the NLingus, but there's other names where the court system, the language is coded, where res is even referred to as the ship, where they're moving the vessel, by the way, because they're using the Admiralty of Maritime. By the way, Admiralty is military and Maritime is law of the seas. They've combined both jurisdictions. By the way, they're operating under statutory de facto. So if you do know some of the correct methods, there's also a different process even to avoid battling in the court system or debating. By the way, because there's some people I know that like to take the path of least resistance. By the way, such as There's another method I'm not really going into detail about that I utilized some years ago from listening to a CD that was given to me privately, that I would say, give you a hint, it dealt with contracts, but it was just another form of least resistance. Now, some say all roads lead to court, and that is true in a sense, but keep in mind they don't play fair sometimes. So you have to really be proficient in knowing the terminology. And people ask, well, we're part of free information to start off. To give you a hint, you want to learn a lot of the, you want to build your vocabulary up, which I'm still doing, learning the definitions. It's important to get a Black's Law dictionary. Some of the more say to go back prior to the 6th edition, because from the 6th edition on up is abridged versions where they remove certain words or it may not contain a full definition. I just explained to a friend of mine recently, did you all know there's a difference between the legal definition of the word person versus natural person? There's two different distinctions. There's natural person, and then there's person. By the way, there's a Black's Law. There's a legal version of natural person. Now, I know some of this might sound confused with this. I covered this in the past, the older video a long time ago. Can't remember which video it was, but I went over the definitions. Look up the definition of the word person. Look up the definition of the word individual. By the way, I'm trying to think of another term. Look up legal person. By the way, look up some of these two words together. These variations, by the way, are important, and it will open your eyes. Also, look up the definition of the word corporation, by the way, and you will understand why. But without further ado, going over some more names, went over Yusuf El, Radiant Clone, Tex Mason, by the way. He has a YouTube channel. Type in Tex Mason, Tex Mason, spelled M as in Matt, A as in Apple, S as in Sally, O as in Operation, N as in Nancy. Tex Mason, he has a YouTube channel. And the reason why I'm going over these channels, they will help give you an idea of the different processes if you're looking at a better understanding. I have a good friend, he's on the fence about this information, and I understand why. He has a family, and I understand people want to be assured. They don't want to, they're kind of, on the edge, and I do get that, by the way. But the difference when you will have studied this information, or you have the experience that I have, that fear from years past, that will start to go away, especially if you find out ways to bulletproof yourself, shield yourself, and protect yourself, by the way, through the types of contracts that you enter into. That's why I said there's different study courses, like those that want to correct the passport. That's a separate process. That's more advanced. And sometimes the people who sell, I think there's only two people that go over those processes, and that's between Jonah Bey and Akeem El. Akeem El, I know he did a webinar, but I know Jonah, he teaches that as well. And sometimes they won't share that process unless they evaluate you and see if you're at a certain level, by the way, because there's people who mess things up in the past, who sabotage things for other people, by the way, because they didn't understand what they were doing. And keep in mind, there's a stampede of a lot of people who are trying to learn this type of information. So that's another reason why I'm going over to share with you all. There's a lot of free information out there. If you know how to research, you have an eye for it. This is my experience, by the way. I see someone in the chat just chimed in, says public and private can't mix, must use a notary to communicate. Yes, that is true. That's called commingling. But keep in mind that a lot of people give the public sector, the statutory side, the benefit of the doubt when they did with this previous election. By the way, I won't get into all the details. There was commingling done on the statutory side where they broke numerous laws because there is a distinction between statutory and non-statutory, by the way. So they can commingle as well from what they're supposed to stay in their lane on the public statutory side. And another problem why some people have had issues is there a lot of public officials, there's lawyers, even judges that are engaged in are changing things on a whim. This is considered fraud. But if you don't know, because most people have not had taken a legal class before, like I've argued in the past, we should have been learning this information in elementary school, middle school, high school prior. I think it was called civics class, by the way. It should have been mandatory because this gives these gatekeepers unofficial advantage over the general public because they're proficient, very proficient, because this English language was designed as a form of trickery. And they have, and especially if they're within a sector of the court system, because they can cash in on your account. Like when you hire an attorney, you're giving them power of attorney or durable power of attorney to handle your commercial affairs, and you're declaring yourself incompetent. So this word represent has a dual meaning. When they say they're going to represent you, they're going to represent you. You see, study the prefixes and suffixes. Represent you, they're going to represent you. You see the re, what are you redoing? Like religion, you're redoing legio, allegiance. Legio is connected to the word allegiance. So you're redoing your allegiance to what? So you have to ask, when they represent you, they're representing you, by the way. So they play on the word. So there's a word play. And that's why it's important to understand, to learn, get Bouvier's dictionary, possibly to learn as many of the terms and the procedures as possible, by the way. You also have another channel called James C. Lovett, which I just got finished watching earlier. He just put out a couple new videos. James C. Lovett, by the way, first name is spelled as you spell James, middle initial C, then last name Lovett. L is in Larry, O is in operation, V is in Violet, E is in Edward, T is in Tina, T is in Tina. James C. Lovett, by the way. If you type that in on YouTube, will come up, and he goes over, he does, I think, a fantastic job with breaking this down as well. By the way, you have another guy out there that has that teaches this type of work, dealing with status correction, sovereignty. It's a channel called Don Kalam, by the way, just like you spell Don, like with the mafia, the mob, the last Don, then you his last name Kalam. K is in kite, E is in Icarus, L is in Larry, A is in Apple, M is in Matt. Don Kalam. If you type that in on YouTube, that's how you'll find his channel, where he goes over status correction information, sovereignty, to give you a better understanding, awareness. Let's say if you're on the fence about this information, you have a plethora of information to look up. You also have a channel called Team Aware. By the way, it's called Team Aware. And you may have to type in Team Aware, redeem lawful money for it to pull up in the YouTube search engine, because sometimes YouTube, based on certain names that you punch in, they bury them in the search results, or it's like case sensitive or specific because it's a unique name. So this channel is called Team Aware, and I think they work with actual paralegals. By the way, contrary to popular belief, a lot of this information pertains to the legal judicial system, by the way. And he's done the few videos that they put out there as well, by the way. But it's an eye opener for newbies, beginners, I would say even advanced people who are looking to brush up their skills, because just because I'm advanced or at the level that I'm at doesn't mean that I can't learn new information. That's why I'm still a student. I'm still studying. As I mentioned, I was watching James C. Lovett's channel earlier, because, you know, some of us who weren't initiated with the full process, like some of the elite children were, who were taught by their parents or sent to private schools by invitation only, which Pastor Lindsey Williams called Secrets of the Elite, as a whistleblower who lived with the elite of the world at the Alaskan pipeline many years ago. Used to put out a lot of DVDs and different things the elites will warn him about. That's the advantage that they have. But the difference with the rest of us who are in the general public, by the way, excuse me, the technology, the information has gotten better throughout the years with the amount of people that have come together and put the research, the tools together. By the way, hold on. All right. Okay, I'm back. I'm gonna read, get to the chat section. I'm gonna read. I know I jumped ahead a little bit. I'm gonna read some of you guys' comments I didn't go through yet. Noble T.U. Savage says, Ganika, land of the Flint, ancient homeland of the Mohawk Nation, whose descendants with traditional natives from other Indian nations, by the way, okay, are moving back to repossess their natural heritage. Other native nations throughout the world have regained their lands and governments. Yes, I am aware of that. There are groups out there that are connected to, like, there's, tribal groups. There's different types of groups out there. Like, people don't understand there's different types of Moors, by the way, when people associate sovereignty, because I'm here to also clear up, there's a lot of urban legends, a lot of spookism, superstitions, and stuff that just simply isn't true. I've been learning, studying this information since 2004. So I'm going to know, kind of being like Mythbusters. I know it's real and I know it's not. And I've also had to watch out for, there are con artists out there. By the way, that's why I've given this free information for people to make their own assessment, their own judgment, because the information has gotten better throughout the years, but that has come from a shared information privately as far as what worked, what doesn't work. That's why I said I don't disrespect those old patriot gurus from back in the day that helped bring about this information, like Patrick Devine, Dr. Sam Kennedy, Barton Butts, who helped write Cracking the Code book. You had Tom Schultz, Jack Smith out of Ohio. There's so many to name. By the way, Kevin Hines out of Texas helped write one of the original promissory notes dealing with discharge and debt. By the way, and that was a process that actually worked. I'm not sure if it still does. The last I've heard of that process is related to SPC, secured party creditor. And the reason people use that term creditor at the end is because, as I asked the question earlier, you have to ask the question, are you the borrower or are you the lender? Are you the debtor or are you the creditor? Because when I show that book, Business Law, where a lot of this information deals with the legal system, where law students have to take that class, some finance people that go in the financial field of finance or accounting, there's parts of this discipline that overlaps, that intersects with that field, by the way, that field of study. That's why I said there's different courses, by the way, and I've been able to connect the dots because I have a friend who had a brokerage securities license, by the way, which that is another field that intersects with this type of information. But business law is kind of like a centralized book that's on a few of the things that I just mentioned. I just went over one chapter on intellectual property that deals with trademarks, copyrights. They had another chapter called Secure Transactions that deals with UCC financing statements. And in the UCC, they actually use the term secured party, by the way, just those two words, but people have added creditor at the end because that's what you really are. But I'll give you the ability to do your research. Don't take my word for what I'm saying, but make sure you do your own assessment, your own investigation, do your own homework, by the way. And research is important, and think critically, and you will see what I'm saying. That's why people have added creditor at the end of secured party. But in the Uniform Commercial Code and business law, even when you read it, they do have a section they refer to as secured party. That's where that comes from. It's just people have given it as the name to identify the name of this redemption movement. But as I went over earlier, I won't get into semantics. People have different things that they call this, but I am clarifying a lot of the myths, the spookisms, the urban legends, a lot of superstitions out there. There is a legitimate side. The diplomatic immunity is real. There is a way to really correct your status. But if you want to know more in depth, you have to set up a private consultation with me if you're serious. Or if you think you just for research purposes, you want to learn more, I could go more in depth with proving that. And I'm in the process of locating some documents that I previously had. By the way, I had a private consultation not too long ago where the individual had stated to me that they noticed the documents that I shared in the video appeared to them it was very professionally done. They said they were very amazed. It dealt with how the United States is a corporation. One of the documents showed the proof. I just held it up to the camera just enough where I showed the UCC filings of very famous people. A couple of them were rappers. The other person, party, would be somebody that everybody would pretty much know. But I held it far back because I was told not to give those documents out. So I just wanted to show validity behind that. Many years ago, when I first learned this information, the people that I was taught by, they said there was famous people that have done these processes, by the way, or have filed that type of paperwork. They were able to look up, or they had connections through 6 degrees of separation with. And I've been told privately, by the way, even in more recent years, that there are some famous people or people that are entertainers out there, professional athletes who are involved or have knowledge of this information behind the scenes, by the way. So I just wanted to provide validity. I also showed a document where the United States is a registered corporation. And I know the law specifically is Title 28 of the United States Codes pursuant to. This is not legal advice. This does not constitute legal advice. I'm referencing to Title 28 of the United States Code, Section 3002, subsection 15, read section A, B, and C, by the way. And it states unequivocally, if you look up online, the United States is a federal corporation, means they're in business similar to GM, General Motors, McDonald's, by the way. And there's even history behind how the United States started off, how charters were formed out of England, dealing with the old Virginia Company, Delaware, Massachusetts, California Trust. There all is a connection with how these entities were formed. You have to ask the question, you have to think, how did these entities originate? Where was the source of origin? Where did they originate from? Because I got into a debate with, I would say, a gatekeeper some years ago, and I said, this stuff just didn't pop up. The birth certificate just didn't create itself. Someone had to invent or create this process. It has a source of origin. What is the history of where it derived from? Where did it come from? By the way, this provides validity if one researches further and does a more in-depth look. By the way, my mind works. I want to know where things originate from. That's why I love history. You know, I want to know, how did things come about? Because I know it just didn't invent itself. It just didn't pop up all of a sudden. It has a source of origin. And these types of things are important if you're learning this information, you're studying, by the way. And that's why I went over some of those different disciplines that connect, that overlap with one another, such as accounting, business law class, the securities brokerage field. By the way, there's a private side, there's a private side, by the way. So going to finish, going back to the chat section. Corey Haywood says, what's going on, my brother? Appreciate you joining, Corey. Corey Haywood says, Impropria persona. Noble T.U. Savage says, there's no honor amongst thieves. These courts were established to steal. Yes, that is correct. But however, there are people that are advanced. Like I would say, that's why when I went over earlier, I say Akeem El and Jonah Bey, they each have a website, akeemel.com, jonahbey.com. I would say they're highly advanced. By the way, there's another guy I know personally that's gone before the courts that has a lot of experience, because that's when it becomes important with understanding the terminology, because you can get jammed up, and knowing how to file the correct paperwork, the correct documents, by the way, is important, because they have traps and things. That's why the language of the court system, the judicial system, legalese, look up the definition of the term legalese. That was done on purpose to give them an advantage. That's why I argued briefly, I went over earlier, we should have been learning this information in elementary school. So we will already be acclimated when we become adults. By the way, we would be familiar, and it would be more of a level playing field, by the way. But see, the B system, it was not set up to be fair. Corey Haywood says everything is public and private can't mix, must use a notary. I think I read that earlier. Yes, it's important to use a notary, but it's important how to use the notary and how to enforce your documents. Like, you can get a document notarized, but however, this is where the study courses come into play. Someone might have shared a procedure with you, whatnot, but you have to also know, or to be able to follow up after you submitted or filed that paperwork as well. That's important as well, as to follow up too with that. Just keep that in mind. Says there is no crime unless someone is injured. Yes, that is correct. They are supposed to produce an injured party, but see what happens too is if you don't understand how to challenge, only supposed to be under two grounds: is that civil or is that criminal? Because if it's criminal contempt of court, they're supposed to produce an injured party. If it's civil, you ask your honor, where's the contract? By the way, because your name, if they say the state of so and so versus John Henry Doe or John Sally Doe or whatever, Sally Doe or whatever, the state is a political body. But you have to know, you have to be able to distinguish. And see, I'm not at that level, but just understanding some of the tricks and traps that they have set up. By the way, there is ways to get things enforced properly. By the way, I'm just going over because, like I said, there's still certain levels that I'm not at yet. So I get what you're saying, by the way, but that is how sometimes they're able to execute or exercise the fraud. They get you through your acquiescence, through your signature, through our ignorance, by us not knowing, understanding, but the procedures and how it applies legally. By the way, these are some of the tricks, the tactics they use. By the way, said, but it's even then it's still public. Say PDF them off the internet. Noble TU Savage says list of sovereign states by date of formation. List of sovereign states by date of formation. Okay, I read that. Search People's Republic. Okay. Search independence. Okay. An independent person is also a easy target and future captive. Okay. I'm not sure where I will say if you have done the proper procedures. I'm not sure what level you're at since I don't know you personally, Noble TU Savage. You make some good points because you do have power in numbers. But however, and going back earlier, the do not detain list is real. Contrary to popular belief, there's a gatekeeper, someone out there a while ago that tried to say that the diplomatic immunity is not real. That is not true. And for those out there who've ever paid attention with me or ever donated to my channel, I have not forgot about you. I want to remind you all, just FYI, public service announcement, that I'm still working on that webinar. I want to do a private webinar. It's going to be exclusively for all of those who've already donated to my channel or have paid for a private consultation already. By the way, I was just trying to decide, by the way, what I was the name that I was gonna go with, whether it was gonna be called the Poor Man's Do Not Detain List, and I may go over discharge of debt, and I'm gonna do it like a super disclaimer. So in case if it is re-disseminated, by the way, it's gonna include a very powerful disclaimer. Probably if I'm showing documents under the Fair Use Act, I'm gonna include fair usage, but it's going to be an eye-opener and going over my experience. By the way, good afternoon, Mary. Thank you for joining, moderator in the building. Thank you, Mary. Appreciate you. So I just want to let you guys know, for those who have already donated to my channel, if you've ever cashed at me, paid for a private consultation, I've already compiled a document with a list of the emails to send. And I'm going to send it to all of those emails at once. I'll have to try to figure out how to do maybe a blind carbon copy. Because some people out there don't like their email to be shown if it's sent like to multiple people. However, but just keep in mind, my Gmail account space, so it'll just be just this particular one time for all the people that have ever paid for private consultation or ever donated. I've compiled a list of emails so far, so make sure that I have your email. I think Currency 365. I'm going to have to try to inbox him or try to get in touch with him so he can get a copy if he wants one as well, because he's been a big supporter, especially in the past. Kudos to the work that he's done by the way, but I think I don't have his email address offhand, and someone else under the name Serena Williams, and I can't remember. It's one guy who donated, who cash apped. So just make sure if you've ever cash app me, or if you've ever paid for private consultation, I have your email so I can put it, document it. So once I have that webinar, it's going to be exclusive, done privately. I'm going to send it to you all first. I don't know if I'm going to upload it on YouTube at all, because I know some people may, share it, but that's why I'm going to give like a major disclaimer in there. And I'm going to go over a lot of information, a lot of documents that I normally don't show, by the way, and break some things down. So it may be called deal with the poor man's version of the do not detain list, dealing with clarification of status correction, and I'm gonna clear up some of the myths, some of the superstitions out there, the urban legends that are simply untrue. And I may even show some of my private to from an event that I attended some years ago, so you guys can see even more clarification, to see that I'm not making this stuff up, by the way, as I've shared with some people in my circle privately, by the way, but that's why I said I have surprises in store, but that I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. So just make sure if you check the description box under the video, it's for serious inquiries only. It's for my email, and that's public service announcement. Once again, for those who have ever donated or paid for private consultation, have an exclusive webinar exclusively for you that I'm going to work on. I was just having trouble trying to determine what the topic of the week, and that's going to be my way, my unofficial way of giving back. As you know, a lot of channels, once they reach a certain amount of subscribers, they'll have a giveaway. If it's like 10,000 subscribers, I'm still not at 10,000. Was approaching close to 7,000 some years ago. I probably could have had more than that, but some of you all know the reason why. And just to give you guys a heads up, the reason I'm going over the names of these different channels, where to get this information from, is I may be going more privately and trying to further my studies and research. I wanted to give you all some resources for those who had questions, application, status correction, sovereignty, where to find free information. You have another channel called the Hellraiser, by the way, and I know this may be hard because it's similar to another name, I think based off of a movie or off of a character. So if you watch the re-upload of this video, it should be in the chat section. I'm gonna put the link. I just posted the link in the chat section. If you click on that YouTube link, by the way, he's put out good work. I would say he's more advanced than when I first started following his channel some years ago, by the way. And this is good at basic, good at information, good education for those who are trying to gain a better idea of what is status correction, to clear up some of the myths, the misconceptions. And I went over earlier, there are different processes and there's different study courses that you're going to have to, you may have to invest in, by the way, if you want to become more advanced. Another channel is Enlightened Luciferian Prince. Enlightened Luciferian Prince. You type in the name of his channel on YouTube, puts out good work. He has videos that pertain dealing with status correction, aka sovereignty, by the way. There's another channel many of you all are familiar with. I know from when I was invited to those private TDA calls back in 2017. You all know his channels of the name Eon. Eon, E as in Edward, E as in Edward, O as in Operation, N as in Nancy, Eon. He used to be under a channel called Legal Redress Commission, aka Brett Jones. Eon, he puts out good work as well. By the way, he's been around for quite a while. This is you know, I'm going over this. These are free channels where you can get free information. You can make your own assessment, which process, which route, which method you want to go, but also provide validity that this information is real. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is not an urban legend. I'm here to clear up a lot of the superstitions, the spookism out there about status correction. the validity behind. And some of these channels, you know, they can help provide better clarification. By the way, especially Jonah Bey. Recently, more recently, he has a YouTube channel, and I've known he's uploading his. He does consultation Wednesdays, free consultation to his followers. He also has like, he does like has like a radio show. I think he's combined. He has his Facebook groups, his Instagram groups. So he has a big following already. Him and Akeem. I consider me personally. I commend those brothers. I think they complement one another to be, I think, the most advanced out of all those who teach or share this information. But I understand different people might find a process or might find a liking, and that's up to one to decide. I'm not here. I'm just here to share. By the way, you have a channel called Free Inhabitant Chancellor Solicitor General. But if you just type in Free Inhabitant, the channel name will come up, Chancellor Solicitor General. He has really good work, very good education. I would say he's highly advanced. He's someone else I forgot about. He's up there with Jonah Bey and Akeem El. From watching his channel, he's had success. By the way, I won't go into some other things. Some of you guys know, maybe already familiar with his channel, Free Inhabitant Chancellor General. He's on the East Coast area, and I think he's really advanced. By the way, I would recommend for free information to evaluate. You have a channel called, type in David Merrill, Redeem and Lawful Money. Type in David Merrill, Redeem and Lawful Money. By the way, I won't spoil that for you guys. You have another channel based off of, this guy is out of Texas, named David Young. Some years ago, he helped pioneer, he helped create the medallion signature stamp, which deals with the securities brokerage field, by the way. And there's some things that's more advanced for some people. He's still alive. He has a channel, by the way. He's had some successes from what I understand. Look up David Young, by the way, his YouTube channel. So to go over a rough down of the names of the channels I went over, by the way, the topic of this video, in case you're joining me, was who teaches status correction, aka sovereignty, free information. I went over his advocates YouTube channel, that's Kelby Smith. I went over Jonah Bey, Akeem El, Yusuf El. His YouTube channel may be called High Frequency Radio. You can also look up, these people have websites. Look up Radiant Clone, by the way, has a YouTube channel. Tex Mason, by the way, we'll type in Team Aware, Redeem and Lawful Money, Team Aware, for that to pull up. It may be case sensitive because of the name on YouTube to find it, but it's just like you spell team, and it's Aware, Apple, W, Apple, Roberto, Edward, Team Aware. You have Hellraiser, which I just posted, and there is the reason I posted the link for Hellraiser's channel, the link in case you're wondering, in the chat section, is because if you just type in the name on YouTube, there's like a movie or another character that's synonymous. So you have to like scroll maybe way down. You may not be able to find it. It may be frustrating, but that'll take you to his specific channel where he's going over status correction info. But he's got things that are more advanced, that are important, dealing with business credit, corporate credit, things of that sort, by the way, that I would say is more advanced, that overlap this information that is important to understand. Also went over Enlightened Luciferian Prince, his channel. I went over Eon. Some of you all know is Brett Jones, Legal Redress Commission. Another channel, David Merrill and David Young. And lastly, I went over Free Inhabitant. And there's some more channels, by the way. There's a guy named Brad Tipton who contacted me from time to time. I've never met before. I think he's based out of California. His channel name is Brad Tipton. And he teaches, he has a unique process, so he knows how to challenge creditors when you get letters. By the way, he can really break things down, dealing with how to find your QSIP number By the way, his channel name is Brad Tipton. By the way, you have another channel called Mosiah Corporation. By the way, there's some how can I put it? Some channels or uh, those out there that act behind the scenes that may have a staff of people information privately. By the way, like Lady Bijou, I don't have her channel. She's based out west. She's someone that I've spoken with over the phone. I have not met in person, but she's claimed, she told me when I met her a year or two ago, I'm not sure when exactly, I can't remember, that she's had over a 90% success rate dealing with the SPC process. By the way, that she perfected the A for V's. I forgot about that, by the way. And I believe she had a YouTube channel. I'm not sure if she still does. I think she has private, just like Druanna Johnston. By the way, they're more so private. And she was working with, she informed me she used to work with Yusuf El some years ago, and she was working with another guy, another patriot who had done some webinars with Yusuf El, David McDowell, I think that was his name. I had some of his webinars. By the way, I think it was still helpful because Eon mentioned in the past, he went over some of this information that some of the older information dealing with the SPC that some people might feel is outdated will help people gain an understanding of how we got to where we're at today. By the way, it was a process of a multitude of people, from private investigators, from people privately sharing information, what worked and what doesn't work, because this information is given exclusively to members of the ruling class elite. There's people that are born into this information. I want to say once again, because some people asked me in the past, and someone brought up that knows me, spoke to me privately that I met, by the way, that teaches corporate credit down out of the Texas area. I won't say his name. He's been on my channel before, but he said it appears to him that there's somebody out here who has the full book from A to Z, but they're hiding it. They're just not sharing it, but they keep it exclusive amongst themselves. And that's why, if you guys wonder, when I've talked about the Illuminati stuff on my channel, dealing with the lineage, your bloodline, there's people that have been initiated into this type of information. They made it exclusive. That's why it was difficult for those people who have never heard about this information, because they created this slave system. This is why they dumbed down the educational system. I found out in the early 1900s, there was a documentary that talked about why the Rockefeller family had something to do with this in terms of dumbing down the information in the early 1900s, dealing with the math system. Greetings to you, Jerry. Thank you for joining. Good afternoon, by the way. But this is to give you an idea that they're sent to private schools. So in case some of you all wonder why do certain people have access, it will mainly be people in the private sector, people you probably never even met, or you had no idea. If you interact with them, they could be an elite on the other side. If you live in an upscale neighborhood, or your neighbor, someone you least suspected, they live in a gated community or something, possibly, not in all cases, because you have a difference with people who are public, who are rich, meaning they just have a lot of money, but they're not litigation, they're not judgment proof. By the way, they don't understand about the private side. They're just on the statutory side. It's like there's a difference between people who are rich versus people who are wealthy, people who pass down generational wealth. There's different categories, but there's another level. There's the super elite level. A friend of mine helped me with this information. He also told me some years ago about that documentary. How did a certain individual, how was he gifted with learning this information? And he told me, he referred me to check out Pastor Lindsey Williams' documentary called Secrets of the Elite. You still might be able to watch it for free on YouTube if there's still a copy that's uploaded. I can't say, I haven't checked in a while, but it was called Secrets of the Elite. By the way, it would behoove you to watch that whole documentary. By the way, maybe watch it twice or several times. I think somewhere in there he goes over how the elite children were sent to private schools by invitation only. By invitation only. They studied out of encyclopedias. They were taught by their parents. That's why they have an advantage. And see, they learn the real information. The information that we're taught in the statutory public sector is dumbed down. But there's a caste system, like you can consider lawyers, people that go into the legal profession. A lot of those terms, by the way, they're high up in the caste system. I won't get into all the details, but you guys can basically figure out what I'm trying to relay, that I'm interpreting for you as an interpreter. So before I wrap things up, not all of these channels focus solely on status correction. Some of these channels get into politics or other topics based on the genre or demographics they appeal to. Everyone has to make their own assessment and evaluation of what they consider legitimate. This type of information, this earlier, is unconventional education, and is only taught to an exclusive class of private people. Secure party, if some people wonder, when some people say that doesn't work, secure party is a term that's used in a uniform commercial code. By the way, simply it's in a class, business law. There's a chapter called secure transactions. The reason people add creditor at the end is that's what you're attempting to correct. That's why I asked the question earlier: are you a debtor or are you a creditor? Are you a borrower? By the way, and we can prove, I have documentation to prove there's a difference, but it's how you contract, how you sign your name, by the way, that determines what side you're operating on, whether you're on the statutory side or non-statutory. By the way, so I went over, okay, Brad Tipton, Mosiah Corporation. Okay, this is more free information. If you're a beginner or you're a newbie, look up videos on YouTube. She's still around. She was out some years ago. Look up the videos on Tammy Peppermint. Look up Tammy Peppermint's videos. Tammy Peppermint. You might have to type in secure party, status correction. But look up Tammy Peppermint. She will help provide insight behind what is going on with the status correction, proper education, the history, similar to Judge Dale, and documents you can look up on Anna Von Ritz. I want to say Judge Dale and Anna Von Ritz, their information is accurate, contrary to popular belief. Don't believe the gatekeepers, minions, and underlinks out there. But Tammy Peppermint is another name. She will help provide some of the history behind the estate, what's going on behind the NLingus, to give you an idea what they're doing behind the scenes and how they're keeping us in a lot of the general public enslaved and dumbed down. By the way, look up Tammy Peppermint. Look up the audios of her on YouTube. I did recently. They are still around. There's some still out there. You also want to look up Ken Dost. Name spelled K as in kite, E as in Edward, N as in Nancy. As you spell Ken, Dost, D as in Delta, O as in operation, S as in safety, T as in Tom. Ken Dost. Look up his audios, and you might have to type in trademark after his name, a mortgage trademark process. Listen to Ken Dost videos. He provides a lot of insight as far as the corruption, the fraud that's being committed, and misconduct that's being done by public officials, gatekeepers at the county, how they're using the NLingus, how they're doing fraudulent things, trying to keep you from becoming free, trying to block your paperwork and stuff like that, doing evil things, even creating fraudulent trademarks when they didn't even go through the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, when they steal people's houses and things of that sort. Just to give you an idea, Ken Dost does an excellent job breaking that down, providing the right type of education about what's happening with foreclosures, patents, trademarks, and how these companies, these corporations, it was not designed for them to enslave the American people like this, but it's a methodology of how they took over, by the way. And Ken Dost helps explain, gives insight. Last but not least, there is a website that's been around for quite a while. It's called myprivateaudio.com. You want to go on Yahoo, Google search engine. If you use DuckDuckGo, which I think is more private, you may still be able to pull this website up. Type in My Private Audio. Angela Stark, it's the name she goes by. She has on TalkShoe. Some of the audios from My Private Audio are linked on TalkShoe, where she's interviewed a lot of the names of some of the older Patriot gurus that helped do a lot of the investigation, a lot of the research behind the scenes. Like, I forgot about Dan Benham. He helped write Cracking the Code with Barton Butte some years ago. He was based out of Michigan. By the way, Barton Butts was an investigator journalist. He also met with the one of the former secretaries of Treasuries, I believe Paul O'Neill, some years ago, admitted that they received negotiable instruments at the time and they discharged debt. And I had another source that told me privately back in 2017, he discharged a student loan for his niece. This is like he used another method of some called the secret TDA account or the Treasury account. They wanted you to use a different method, but there was this was a different method, and I was familiar. You would send it to this particular address in Washington, D.C., and he informed me that this is someone I know personally, and he had major credentials. By the way, he had a Series 7 and a Series 63 brokerage license, and he informed me he had successfully discharged a student loan for his niece, by the way, and said that after he had done this successfully, he said it took a while for them to process. It took like maybe 45 or 60 days, but they did discharge it from what he informed me. And he sent it to this entity, the name I'm not saying, at this particular address, the same address where I helped a former girlfriend some years ago discharge the debt using a bond, like certain negotiable instrument. It's like older technology we used to use some years ago, like another form of A for V, but an instrument you would type up would have to be done a certain way, sent by registered mail, and it went through. And he told me that worked as of 2017. By the way, he did that back in 2017, which isn't a long time ago, and that's part of the secure party creditor process. So I know some people say that that doesn't work. However, if you are looking at studying secure party creditor process, I would advise you, in my humble opinion, it would be important if you already have a legal background. If not, then you may want to look at learning as much of the basics as you can to acclimate yourself as much as possible, by the way, so you become proficient, because it may be harder for you because of they've changed some things pertaining to that process. But those who've had success dealing with SPC have an understanding of Form 56, the power of attorney form with the IRS 2848. And it's another form I can't think of offhand. And they have like more of a proficient background dealing with the legal system in order for SPC to work, for that process to work. But I talked about the discharge, which was a separate class, part of the SPC process, by the way. And there was different ways to discharge debt, by the way. This is like through word of mouth. Information has gotten better, where people, private study groups have shared things privately with one another to help bring about this information. So lastly, when I went over myprivateaudio.com, has a lot of the old recordings from different people that studied in the movement. This helps provide validity behind the research that people have done, different people that have studied the laws or came up with different processes themselves, or inform you what worked, what didn't work, by the way, so you would have a better idea, so you wouldn't make the same mistakes. Some of them acted as guinea pigs, by the way, in the laboratory, but a lot of their research brought about the more advanced processes that we have now, by the way. So My Private Audio and some of their links, websites that went over basic information many years ago. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I do apologize for the pauses I had to make at the time. By the way, I appreciate you all who continue to stay subscribed. If you like the work that I put out, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. So whenever I put out new videos, YouTube will notify you in the upper right-hand section. By the way, if you want to follow me on social media, you can find me on Facebook, at Dorsey's Resource. You can find me on Twitter at Dorsey's Resource. I'm also on Minds.com. I am on Instagram. By the way, Instagram is my more laid back, by the way, when I'm just chilling. By the way, because you got to take your mind off this stuff too. By the way, so appreciate you guys joining me. Real legends never die. The marathon will continue. To those out there, stay woke. Until next time. Deuces. Peace. I'm out.